So think about this for a second. When a surgeon is in the middle of a really complex operation, how do they stop the bleeding? I mean, the tools they use today are unbelievably advanced, but what's wild is that the core ideas behind them, they're literally thousands of years old. Today, we're going to bridge that gap from the surgical text of ancient India all the way to a modern, high-tech OR to explore the timeless art of stopping bleeding. And our journey really has to start with this ancient Ayurvedic saying, Rakta is jiva. Blood is life. Now, this wasn't just some poetic phrase. It was a core medical principle. It meant that protecting a person's blood and preventing its loss was the same thing as protecting their life. This single idea is the reason controlling bleeding has always been, well, absolutely critical. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the universal problem itself. Then, we'll dive into the pretty brilliant solutions from ancient Ayurveda. After that, we'll jump to the modern surgical arsenal. But the part I think you'll find fascinating is section 4, where we see how those ancient ideas are still echoing today, before we wrap it all up. Okay, let's kick things off with section 1, the universal problem. This is all about getting a handle on hemostasis, the process of stopping blood flow. And believe me, it's a challenge that healers and doctors have been facing since day one. The ancient term for all these techniques is Raktasthambhanopaya. I know, it's a mouthful, but let's break it down. Rakta means blood. Simple enough. Stambhana means to block or to arrest. So put them together, and the word literally means the methods to stop the flow of blood. It's just such a precise and perfect term for a life-saving skill. And you know what's truly incredible? Just how deeply ancient surgeons understood what happens when you fail to control bleeding. Get this. Texts like the Sushruta Samhita describe the complications with stunning accuracy, talking about everything from blindness and convulsions to paralysis and, of course, death. They were essentially describing hemorrhagic shock, showing a clinical understanding that honestly rivals our own. So the big question is, how did they deal with it? That brings us to section 2, ancient Ayurvedic solutions. Faced with this life or death challenge, they developed a really systematic, 4-part approach to manage bleeding. And these were their 4 pillars: sandhana, skandana, pachana, and dahana. Each one represents a totally different principle and a different tool in their medical kit, which gave them a comprehensive strategy for pretty much any bleeding situation they might face. And this chart breaks down how they worked perfectly. Sandhana involved using astringent herbs to literally make the blood vessels constrict. Skandana used cold things, like ice or cool liquids, to slow down blood flow. Pachana meant applying a special medicinal ash called basma right onto the wound to help it clot. And dahana, well, that was the most direct method, using a heated metal rod to cauterize the vessel and seal it shut. Okay, now let's hit the fast forward button and leap forward a couple thousand years. Welcome to section 3, the modern surgical arsenal. How do today's surgeons tackle the exact same problem? You have to understand, controlling bleeding isn't just a part of surgery. It's one of the absolute pillars that makes modern surgery even possible. Seriously, without effective hemostasis, all the amazing advances we have in anesthesia and antibiotics would be pretty much useless. So modern methods are basically grouped into 3 main buckets: mechanical, chemical, or biological, and thermal. Now, as we go through these, I want you to see if you can spot some of the similarities to that 4-fold approach we just looked at. The connections are there. So this gives you a snapshot of the modern toolkit. Mechanical methods, that's stuff like applying direct pressure, using sutures or tiny clips. Chemical and biological agents are substances that actually work with the body's own clotting system to kick it into high gear. And thermal methods use energy, like intense heat, or even extreme cold, to seal off vessels. And this brings us right to the heart of our whole explainer today. Section 4, echoes through time. This is where we're going to connect all the dots and see just how that ancient wisdom is reflected in what we do today. So let's just ask the question straight up. How do these ancient principles echo in a modern operating room? You're about to see the answers are pretty mind-blowing. Let's start with heat. Remember dahana karma, using a heated metal rod to cauterize a wound? Well, today we use something called electrocautery. It uses a high-frequency electric current to do the exact same thing, apply intense, super precise heat to make the blood coagulate and seal the vessel. The principle is identical. The only thing that's changed is that technology has gotten way more refined. Okay, what about pachana karma? Using that medicinal ash. This is basically a direct ancestor to modern chemical agents. Ancient doctors knew that putting a powder on a wound gave the blood a physical structure to help it form a clot. Today, we use engineered materials like oxidized cellulose, that provide a tiny meshwork for platelets to grab onto, creating an artificial clot almost instantly. Same idea, just a much more advanced material. And this might be the most direct link of all. The ancient technique of just applying firm pressure with your fingers, it's still the very first thing anyone learns to do to stop bleeding. In the OR, that basic mechanical idea has just evolved a bit into using gauze packs, clamps called hemostats, and sutures to tie off vessels. It is the most fundamental, the most timeless technique there is. And just look at this slide. This shows you the sheer scale of modern innovation that's been built on top of those old principles. We now have this incredible lineup of specialized chemical tools, gelatin sponges that create a scaffold for clots, collagen that directly tells platelets to activate, and even biological fibrin glues that work like superglue for human tissue. The cool kit has just exploded. All of which brings us to our final section, the big takeaway. Section 5, a timeless pursuit. So, what can we learn from this incredible journey through medical history? Here's the most important thing to remember. It doesn't matter if you're using herbal ash or an engineered polymer, a heated iron rod, or a precision electrocautery pen, the core principles have always been the same. Constrict the vessel, plug the hole, and seal the leak. The how has changed dramatically, but the what and the why have been constant. In the end, it really all boils down to this. You've got two very different approaches, separated by thousands of years of technology and discovery, but they are both united by one single unchanging goal: to preserve jiva, to preserve life. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. We've seen how these ancient ideas for stopping bleeding are alive and well in modern medicine. It just makes you wonder, right? As our science and technology keep leaping forward, what other pieces of ancient wisdom are just sitting there, waiting for us to rediscover them, dust them off, and refine them for the future?